The shattered wine glass echoed through the apartment like a gunshot, but it was the silence that followed that truly terrified Olivia. Through the keyhole of the locked bathroom door, she could see her boyfriend's face transform from the charming law student her father had warned her about into something unrecognizable, cold, calculated, and suddenly very dangerous. 3,000 miles away, Richard Bennett's phone lit up with a single text. "Dad, you were right." As he stared at those 4 words, the weight of every argument, every slammed door, every "you're ruining my life" crashed down upon him like an avalanche. The hard-working father who had sacrificed everything for his daughter now faced the most important race of his life, to reach his daughter before the boyfriend returned with the key. What dark secrets had Richard seen in the boyfriend that his daughter had been blind to all along? If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share your own experiences with parental instincts in the comments below. Richard Bennett knew something was off about Marcus the moment they met. "Dad, this is Marcus," Olivia had said, her smile brighter than he'd seen in years. She'd brought him home for Sunday dinner, a tradition they'd maintained even after her mother's passing 5 years ago. "Mr. Bennett, pleasure to meet you, sir." Marcus extended his hand. Firm handshake, direct eye contact, respectful tone, the perfect boyfriend on paper. Richard had nodded, trying to ignore the unease settling in his stomach. Over dinner, we spoke eloquently about his first year of law school, his plans to join a prestigious firm, his volunteer work. But Richard noticed how his daughter's eyes flickered to Marcus before answering any question. How she'd started a story about her photography class only to have Marcus subtly redirect the conversation. "Actually, Olivia's being modest. She's brilliantly managing her job while supporting me through the law school chaos," Marcus said, placing his hand over hers. "I couldn't do it without her." Olivia beamed, but Richard saw something hollow in her smile. After Marcus left, Richard approached, carefully. "He seems ... intense. He's driven, Dad. That's why we connect. I noticed he interrupted you a few times." Olivia's expression hardened. "He was helping me tell the story better." "You're looking for problems that aren't there." "Livy, I just don't call me that anymore. I'm not a little girl." She gathered her purse. "This is why I don't bring people home. You always find something wrong." Over the following weeks, Richard observed from a distance how Olivia's colorful wardrobe gradually shifted to muted tones, how her social media posts grew infrequent, how she canceled their weekly coffee meet 3 times because Marcus surprised her with plans. The final straw came when Richard stopped by her apartment unannounced with soup when she had a cold. Marcus answered the door. "Mr. Bennett," he said, surprise quickly masked with a smile. "Olivia didn't mention you were coming by. Thought I'd surprise her." Richard held up the container. "Homemade chicken soup, how thoughtful. But she's resting. Now I'll make sure she gets it." As Marcus reached for the container, Richard held firm. "I'd like to see her, just for a minute." Something flashed in Marcus's eyes, annoyance, anger. It vanished so quickly Richard almost doubted he'd seen it. "Dad." Olivia appeared behind Marcus, wrapped in a blanket. "You should have called first. You're sick, I brought soup." Marcus already made me soup. She wouldn't meet his eyes, and he's taking care of everything. Richard drove home, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. That night he called his sister Jane. "Am I being paranoid?" he asked after explaining everything. Jane's voice was gentle but firm. "Trust your instincts, Rich. What you're describing, the isolation, the personality changes, those are warning signs. She'll hate me if I say anything. Maybe temporarily. But if you're right." Richard stared at a photo of Olivia on his mantle graduation day, her smile unrestrained, the future limitless. "I can't lose her, Jane." "Then you need to find a way to reach her before it's too late." Richard had prepared himself for many difficult conversations with his daughter over the years, but nothing had prepared him for this. "What do you mean you're moving to California?" Richard set down his coffee mug with more force than intended. Sunday breakfast, their tradition since Olivia was tall enough to reach the counter and help mix pancake batter. Marcus got an externship opportunity with a judge in San Francisco. It's incredible for his career. Olivia pushed her eggs around her plate. "He asked me to come with him. And your job, your photography classes, your friends." Richard struggled to keep his voice level. "I can find work anywhere with my marketing degree, and there are photography classes in California too." Dad, she finally met his eyes. "This isn't the 1950s. Women follow their own dreams, not just their boyfriends. Is this your dream, Livy, or his?" Her fork clattered against the plate. "There it is. I knew you'd make this about him, because it is about him. 6 months ago you were talking about applying to that photography institute in New York. Now suddenly you're following him across the country. We're building a life together. That's what people do when they're in love. Love doesn't ask you to give up everything." Olivia stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "No, that's what you do, isn't it? Mom's been gone for 5 years, and you still treat me like I'm the only thing you have left." The words hit like a physical blow. Richard recoiled, his throat tightening. "Olivia, that's not fair, isn't it? You've been finding fault with every person I've dated. Marcus is the first one who actually has ambition, who challenges me, who wants a future with me, and you can't stand it." "That's not true." I just see things you don't want to see. Richard took a breath. The way he checks your phone when you leave the room, how you always ask his permission before making plans, how you've stopped wearing those bright colors you love. Olivia's face flushed. You're spying on us now. I'm observing what's happening to my daughter. What's happening is I'm growing up and making my own choices. Marcus respects me. He values me. Does he or does he control you? The silence between them stretched, taut and dangerous. I'm moving at the end of the month, Olivia finally said, her voice quiet. I'd like your support, but I don't need it. Richard's hands trembled slightly. Olivia, please, just take some time to think about this. I have thought about it. For once in my life, I'm not overthinking, I'm following my heart. At least let me help you find your own apartment there, so you have some independence. Olivia shook her head. We've already signed a lease together. It's done, Dad. 2 weeks later, Richard stood in her half-empty apartment, helping load the last boxes into the shipping container. Marcus supervised, occasionally redirecting Richard's efforts. That one goes in storage, not California, he said, taking a box, labeled winter clothes from Richard's hands. Olivia won't need heavy sweaters in San Francisco. Richard wanted to argue that fog-shrouded San Francisco could be quite cold, but bit his tongue. As Olivia hugged him goodbye at the airport, Richard whispered, I'm always here for you, no matter what. She pulled back, her eyes sad but determined. I need you to trust me, Dad. This is my life. I know, he said. I love you, Livy. Don't call me that, she said automatically, then softened. I love you too, Dad. As he watched them walk through security, Marcus's hand possessively at the small of Olivia's back. Richard had never felt so helpless. The first month after Olivia left, Richard maintained a careful routine. He called every Sunday at 2 p.m., too early to intrude on their weekend, not so late that plans might be made without him. Their conversations felt like navigating a minefield. How's the new job? He asked during their third call, trying to sound casual. It's fine, just temporary until I find something in marketing. And your photography? Found any classes yet? A pause. Marcus thinks I should focus on establishing my career first. Photography can wait. Richard bit back his first response. But you've been passionate about photography since high school. It's just a hobby, Dad. Her voice had that new edge to it, defensive, dismissive. Adults have to prioritize. The video calls became audio only by the second month. My camera's acting up, Olivia explained. By the third month, Richard noticed she always seemed to be whispering. Marcus is studying for finals, she explained. I don't want to disturb him. Can you go into another room? The apartment's small. It's fine, Dad. When Richard suggested visiting for her birthday, the excuses were immediate. We're both so busy. It's not a good time. Maybe during the holidays instead. In October, Richard found himself sitting in a community center basement, surrounded by strangers, a styrofoam cup of bad coffee warming his hands. I'm Richard, he said when his turn came. My daughter moved across the country with her boyfriend. I think she's in a controlling relationship, but she won't admit it. I don't know what to do. After the meeting, a woman with silver-streaked hair approached him. I'm Sandra, she said, extending her hand. My daughter was with an abusive partner for 3 years before she got out. How did you help her? Richard asked, desperate for answers. Sandra's smile was sad. I didn't, not directly. I kept the door open, called regularly, never criticized her choices, sent care packages, reminded her she always had a home with me. She paused. The hardest part was watching and waiting. Every instinct screams to rescue them, but they have to decide. To leave, what if they get hurt while you're waiting? That's the nightmare that keeps us up at night. Sandra touched his arm gently. You're doing the right thing by educating yourself. Controlling relationships escalates slowly like a pot of water heating until suddenly it's boiling. That night, Richard called Olivia again. She answered on the 6th ring, her voice hushed. Dad, it's not a good time, just checking in. How are you? Fine, everything's fine. Background noise, a door closing, muffled voices. Are you alone? Marcus is in the other room. Look, can I call you tomorrow? Sure, sweetheart. I love. The line went dead before he could finish. Richard stared at his phone, then opened his laptop and began researching domestic violence hotlines, support resources in San Francisco, legal options for concerned family members. The information was overwhelming, but one message appeared consistently: maintain connection, don't isolate them further. Be ready when they reach out. He started sending weekly emails instead of calling casual, updates about his life, neighborhood news, funny stories, things she could read on her own time. Occasionally she'd respond with brief messages. Her replies grew shorter, sometimes just a few words. Thanks for sharing. Glad you're well. Miss you. But she was still responding. Still there. Richard held onto that slender thread of connection like a lifeline, even as his worry deepened into dread. Richard was washing dinner dishes when his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. He almost let it go to voicemail, wary of the endless spam calls, but something made him answer. Mr. Bennett, this is Jennifer Chen. Jen, I was Olivia's roommate in college. Richard remembered her instantly, a petite, energetic young woman who'd shared an apartment with Olivia during their junior and senior years. They'd remained close after graduation, before Marcus entered the picture. Jen, of course. Is everything okay? A hesitation. I'm not sure. That's why I'm calling you. Richard dried his hands and sat down, his heart accelerating. What happened? I just got back from visiting Olivia in San Francisco. Jen's voice was tentative, as if she was still processing what she'd seen. I had a conference there, and we made plans months ago for me to stay with them for the weekend. How was she different? Quiet, always checking her phone. Jen paused. Mr. Bennett, does Olivia need permission to go places now? The dish towel twisted in Richard's grip. What do you mean? We had plans to meet for lunch on Friday. Just us girls. She texted me that morning saying she couldn't make it. When I got to their apartment that night, I overheard Marcus telling her she should have asked him before making plans while he was at his externship. Did she say anything to you about it? No, she acted like everything was fine. Jen's voice dropped. But it's not just that. She kept checking with him about everything: what restaurant to order from, what movie to watch, even what she should wear to brunch. The Olivia I knew was the most decisive person I've ever met. Richard closed his eyes. Did you talk to her about it? I tried, but Marcus was always there. The one time we had a moment alone, she seemed nervous, kept glancing at the door. Jen's voice cracked slightly. I asked if she was happy, and you know what she said? Marcus is working so hard for our future. That's not an answer. Did you notice anything else? Anything ... concerning? Jen was quiet for a moment. Her photography. Remembered how amazing she was. She had that exhibition her senior year. Of course, pride momentarily displaced the worry in Richard's chest. Olivia's black and white portraits had earned praise from the university's most demanding professors. There's not a single photograph displayed in their apartment. Not one of her prints. When I asked about her camera, she said she'd put it in storage because they didn't have room for hobbies. The familiar helpless rage rose in Richard's throat. Did she seem afraid of him? Not afraid exactly, more like anxious to please him. And Mr. Bennett? Jen hesitated. What is it, Jen, please? He checks her phone all the time. If it dings, he picks it up first. At one point, she got a text, and he read it, then handed it back, saying, "It's just your dad. You can respond later." Richard's stomach twisted. Thank you for telling me. I'm worried about her, Jen admitted, but I don't know what to do. She got defensive when I tried to ask if everything was okay. Keep in touch with her, Richard said firmly. That's what everyone tells me. Don't let her get isolated, even if she pushes you away. I will. Jen paused. Mr. Bennett, she has pictures of you two on her nightstand. 3 of them, I think. She hid them in her drawer when Marcus came in. After they hung up, Richard sat in his silent kitchen for a long time, staring at the last photo on his phone of Olivia smiling, genuinely smiling, taken the Christmas before she met Marcus. If he pushed too hard, he might lose her completely. If he did nothing, he might lose her anyway. For the first time since his wife died, Richard Bennett felt truly afraid. Dad, we're having a little housewarming dinner this weekend. I thought maybe we could video chat and I could show you the apartment. Richard nearly dropped his phone at the unexpected invitation. After months of brief calls and shorter texts, Olivia's voice sounded almost like her old self, excited, warm. I'd love that, sweetheart. What time? Saturday at 7. Our time. So 5 for you. When Saturday arrived, Richard sat at his kitchen table, hair combed, wearing a button-down shirt as if he were attending in person. The video call connected, and Olivia's face filled the screen. Hi, Dad. She was wearing makeup, her hair styled in loose waves. Behind her, Richard could see a small, tastefully decorated living room. The place looks great. Live. Let me give you the tour before everyone arrives. Olivia flipped the camera, walking him through the apartment kitchen with gleaming countertops. Small dining area set for 6-bedroom with a glimpse of a neatly made bed. Marcus painted the whole place himself, she said, pride evident in her voice. He's so particular about everything being perfect. As if summoned, Marcus appeared in the frame. Mr. Bennett, good to see you. You too, Marcus. The apartment looks wonderful. Olivia has a good eye for decorating. Marcus slipped an arm around her waist. Though we had some discussions about the color scheme, didn't we, babe? Richard noticed how Olivia's smile tightened slightly. Marcus thought my idea of blue walls would be too dark for such a small space. He was right, of course. The white does make it seem larger, Richard offered neutrally. Exactly. Practical considerations over emotional ones. Marcus kissed Olivia's temple, but his eyes remained cool. Babe, you should check the risotto. We don't want it to overcook. Oh, right. Olivia handed the phone to Marcus and hurried to the kitchen. She's still learning to cook properly, Marcus said, his voice lowered. I've been teaching her. Her idea of dinner when we met was takeout or boxed pasta. Richard bit back a defense of his daughter's cooking. She'd been making family dinners since she was 16, after her mother got sick. Instead, he asked, how's the externship going? Demanding but rewarding. Judge Harmon has already hinted he might recommend me for a clerkship after graduation. That's impressive, Richard acknowledged. The doorbell rang, and Marcus excused himself. For a few minutes, Richard watched from his virtual perch on the counter as guests arrived to couples around Olivia and Marcus's age, dressed in business, casual attire. Olivia returned to the phone. Dad, meet everyone. This is Alyssa, and Devandevan works with Marcus at the courthouse, and this is Alyssa and Paul's in Marcus's study group. Richard exchanged pleasantries with the guests, noting how Olivia seemed to vibrate with nervous energy, constantly glancing toward Marcus as if checking his reaction to everything she said. During dinner, served at the small table just visible from the phone's position, Richard observed the dynamics unfolding. The women complimented the food, particularly a mushroom risotto that Olivia mentioned she'd made. "It's delicious," Eliza said, taking another bite. "You'll have to give me the recipe." "Oh, it's actually Marcus's recipe," Olivia quickly responded. "He's the real cook." "I just wrote down the instructions," Marcus said smoothly. Olivia did all the work. He took a bite and paused, though perhaps a touch more salt next time, and the rice is slightly overdone. Richard saw Olivia's smile falter momentarily before she recovered. "You're right, I'll do better next time." The conversation flowed around legal cases and courthouse gossip. When Olivia mentioned a marketing project she was working on for her new job, Marcus subtly redirected the conversation back to his externship. That is, dessert was served. Richard noticed how Alyssa complimented Marcus's wine selection, touching his as she spoke. A flicker of something dark crossed Marcus's face as his eyes darted to Olivia. "More wine, Mr. Bennett," Marcus called suddenly, walking to the counter where the phone sat. "Oh wait, you're not really here, are you?" His laugh seemed forced. "Olivia, your dad probably has better things to do than watch us eat dinner, actually." Richard began. "I'll call you tomorrow, Dad," Olivia interrupted, her eyes meeting his briefly before looking away. "Thanks for joining us." The call ended abruptly, leaving Richard staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. Richard was halfway through his Sunday morning run when his phone rang. Olivia's ringtone. He stopped immediately, chest heaving as he answered. "Hey, Dad, Olivia, how are you? How was the rest of the dinner party?" "It was fine. Sorry we had to cut you off like that." "No problem." Richard walked slowly, catching his breath. "Everything okay? You don't usually call this early." A pause. "I have some news." Something in her voice made Richard stop walking entirely. "What is it?" "I've decided to leave my job. The marketing position. I thought you were enjoying it." "I was, but ... double quotes." She hesitated. "Marcus is entering his final year of law school. It's going to be really intense, and he needs support at home." Richard chose his words carefully. Support, meaning? He's going to be studying for the bar exam after graduation. I can't expect him to worry about cooking and cleaning and everything else, and this way I can focus on building my portfolio. "Your photography portfolio?" "No, Dad." Impatience edged into her voice. "A writing portfolio. I'm thinking about going into legal writing, maybe help with briefs once Marcus is established." Richard's free hand clenched at his side. "What about your own career plans? Your own dreams?" "This is a practical decision." She sounded like she was reciting something. "Marcus's earning potential is much higher than mine ever would be in marketing. It makes sense for me to support his career now." "Olivia, you worked so hard for your degree. Your job, it's temporary. Dad, a strategic sacrifice. That's what relationships are about. Compromise. Compromise goes both ways." Richard couldn't keep the edge from his voice. "What is Marcus sacrificing?" Silence stretched between them. "He's under incredible pressure," she finally said. "His entire future depends on these next few months." "And what about your future?" "My future is with him." Her voice hardened. "I thought you'd understand. You put your career on hold when Mom got sick. That was different. Your mother was dying." Richard's throat tightened. "I had already established my career, and it was temporary. I went back to work after she died." "I know." Olivia's voice softened slightly. "Look, I've already given notice. I'm finishing up next week." Richard felt the familiar helplessness rising. Pushed too hard, and she'd shut down completely. Say nothing, and he was complicit in watching his vibrant, ambitious daughter diminish herself. "Will you at least consider some part-time work or online classes? Something that's just for you?" Another pause. "Marcus thinks it would be distracting right now." "Marcus thinks Marcus needs." "Marcus says." The words escaped before Richard could stop them. "I knew you wouldn't understand." Olivia's voice turned cold. "This is why I don't tell you things anymore. You always make me feel like I'm making the wrong choice. I'm sorry. I just want you to be happy." "I am happy. Why can't you see that?" But her voice lacked conviction. "Olivia, sweetheart, are you?" Richard stopped himself from asking if she was safe. "Are you sure about this decision?" "Yes, it's what I want." After they hung up, Richard finished his run at a punishing pace, as if he could outrun the fear growing inside him that evening. He called Sandra from the support group. "She's quitting her job to support his career," Richard said without preamble when Sandra answered. "She used to be so ambitious, so independent. Economic control is a common tactic." Sandra replied gently. "My daughter's ex convinced her to put all her paychecks in a joint account," he managed. When she finally left, she didn't have a penny to her name. What should I do? Could you offer to help her financially? In a way that doesn't threaten her independence? Richard considered this. I could start a separate account for her. Tell her it's just in case of emergencies. That's good. And Richard, tell her you support her, even if you don't support her decisions. She needs to know your love is unconditional. After they hung up, Richard sat in his empty house, surrounded by photographs of the happy, confident daughter he feared was disappearing piece by piece. The airport was packed with holiday travelers, but Richard spotted Olivia immediately. She stood near baggage claim, wearing a gray coat he didn't recognize, her hair shorter than in their last video call, and beside her, his hand firmly on the small of her back, was Marcus. Richard had hoped selfishly, perhaps that Marcus would but be too busy with exam prep to make the Thanksgiving trip back east. Dad. Olivia's smile seemed genuine as she embraced him. She felt thinner in his arms. Welcome home, sweetheart. Richard held her a moment longer than necessary before extending his hand to Marcus. Good to see you, Marcus. How was the flight? Delayed, cramped, typical holiday travel. Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Olivia insisted we come, despite my study schedule. Well, I'm glad she did. Richard grabbed their luggage. Cars this way. At home, Richard had prepared Olivia's childhood bedroom for them and stocked the kitchen with her favorite foods. He'd invited his sister Jane and her husband for Thanksgiving dinner, hoping their presence might ease the tension. The first evening passed peacefully enough. Olivia helped Richard prepare dinner while Marcus made work calls from the guest room. Over the meal, Olivia seemed almost like her old self, laughing at Richard's jokes, asking about neighbors and family friends. After dinner, while loading the dishwasher, Richard ventured carefully. How's everything really going? Live. She glanced toward the stairs, where Marcus had gone to shower. Good. Busy. Marcus is stressed about finals, but we're managing. And you are? You writing or photography? Anything for yourself? Her smile faltered. I'm supporting Marcus right now. That's what matters. You matter too, Olivia. She turned away, arranging dishes with unnecessary precision. I know what I'm doing, Dad. On Thanksgiving Day, the kitchen filled with familiar holiday sounds, the oven timer, potatoes boiling, Olivia humming as she prepared the green bean casserole her mother used to make. Marcus offered to make the gravy, dismissing Olivia's attempt with a gentle but firm, "Let me handle this, babe. Remember last year's lumps?" Richard caught Olivia's flash of hurt before she covered it with a laugh. He's right. Gravy's not my strong suit. Your mother couldn't make gravy either, Richard said, winking at his daughter. That was always my job. Well, now it's mine, Marcus said, his tone light but final. When Jane and her husband arrived, the dynamic shifted subtly. Jane had always been perceptive, and Richard saw her watching the interactions between Olivia and Marcus with increasing concern during dinner. Olivia served the green bean casserole. This is delicious, Jane's husband said, taking a second helping. It's my mom's recipe, Olivia said, a hint of pride in her voice. Marcus took a bite and frowned slightly. It's a bit heavy on the pepper, don't you think, babe? And the beans are overcooked. The table fell silent. Richard saw Jane's eyes narrow. I think it's perfect, Richard said firmly, serving himself more. Just like your mother used to make. Everyone's a critic, Olivia said with a forced laugh, but Richard saw her push her, their own serving aside untouched. Later, as they cleared the table, Jane cornered Richard in the kitchen. What the hell is going on with that guy? She whispered furiously. Did you see how he criticized everything she did? And she just takes it. I know, Jane. I've been worried for months. Well, do something. That's not the niece I know. After dessert, they moved to the living room for coffee. As Olivia leaned over to set down a tray of cups, her sleeve rode up, revealing a cluster of bruises around her wrist. Richard froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Olivia, what happened to your arm? She quickly pulled her sleeve down. Oh, that. I hit it on the kitchen counter. I'm so clumsy lately. Marcus reached over and gently took her hand. Remember, babe, you fell during that workout class last week. The instructor had you doing those ridiculous burpees. Right, the workout class. Olivia nodded quickly. That's what happened. Richard and Jane exchanged glances. Neither of them believed it for a second. The business card felt heavy in Richard's hand. Detective Michael Reyes Rhett, private investigator. Jane had slipped it to him as she left after Thanksgiving. Just call him, she'd whispered. For peace of mind. For 3 days, Richard carried the card in his wallet, taking it out occasionally to stare at the embossed lettering. Was he overreacting, invading his adult daughter's privacy, or was he failing to protect her by not acting on his suspicions? On the 4th day, Richard made the call. Detective Reyes's office was small but orderly, tucked above a convenience store in a modest part of town. The man himself matched his surroundings, compact, efficient, with observant eyes that missed nothing. Tell me why you're here, Mr. Bennett, Reyes said after they'd exchanged pleasantries. Richard took a deep breath. I think my daughter's boyfriend might be abusive. I need to know if he has a history. What's his name? Marcus Whitman. He's a law student at Berkeley, originally from Connecticut. Reyes made notes. What specifically concerns you about him? Richard detailed everything: the isolation, the personality changes, the bruises, the controlling behavior. Saying it all aloud to a stranger made it sound even worse in the scenarios he'd been playing in his head. Has your daughter ever confirmed any abuse? No. She makes excuses. Says everything's fine. Reyes nodded. That's typical. What are you hoping to learn from me? Anything that might help me convince her she's in danger, or confirm I'm not just being a paranoid father. I'll run a background check, look for prior complaints, restraining orders, sealed records. Give me a week. That week was one of the longest of Richard's life. He replayed every interaction with Marcus, analyzing words and gestures for clues he might have missed. He researched domestic violence patterns online, recognizing too many in his daughter's situation. When Reyes called to schedule a follow-up meeting, his tone revealed nothing. What did you find? Richard asked as soon as he sat down in the detective's office. Reyes slid a thin folder across the desk. Marcus Whitman has a sealed juvenile record. Richard's heart sank. What does that mean? It means he was involved in something serious enough to create a record, but as a minor, could be anything from vandalism to violence. Sealed records are protected by law. I can't access the details, so we don't know what he did. Not officially. Reyes leaned forward. But I have contacts. The record is from Greenwich, Connecticut. When Marcus was 17, a girl at his high school filed a complaint. Something happened at a party. The girl's parents eventually dropped the charges. Was she his girlfriend? Yes, and Mr. Bennett. Reyes hesitated. The complaint allegedly involved physical restraint and intimidation. Nothing I can prove or use legally, but my source is reliable. Richard felt sick. What about college? Law school, clean record, exemplary student. But I found something else. Reyes slid over a printout of a social media post. This is from an anonymous campus forum at his undergraduate university. A warning about an unnamed law student who locks his girlfriend in their apartment when he's angry. The description matches Whitman. Richard stared at the post, dated 2 years ago. Had Marcus done this before? Were there other Olivias out there? What can I do with this information? It's all circumstantial. Legally not much. This isn't evidence, just background. Reyes closed the folder. But, as a father, it tells you your instincts were right. How do I help her carefully? If you confront him directly or try to force her to leave, it could escalate the situation. Reyes handed Richard another card. This is a domestic violence advocate I've worked with. She can advise you on approaching your daughter. And if Olivia won't listen, Reyes's expression was grave. Then you prepare for when she needs you. Because, if he's following the pattern, eventually she will. Richard left the office with the folder and a growing sense of dread. Whatever Marcus had done in the past, he was fully capable of doing again, and Olivia was 3,000 miles away, alone with him. Richard's hands shook as he set down his suitcase in the hotel room. After weeks of planning with Jane and the domestic violence advocate, he was finally in San Francisco. Jen had agreed to help, arranging to meet Olivia for coffee near her apartment while Richard and Jane waited. Are you sure this is the right approach? Richard asked his sister for the 100th time. The advocate said we need to be gentle but direct, Jane reminded him. No accusations against Marcus. Just concerns about the changes we've noticed in Olivia. Richard checked his watch. Jen should be meeting her now. His phone buzzed with a text from Jen. She's here, coming to hotel in 30 minutes. The plan was simple. Create a safe space for Olivia to talk, express their concerns, offer resources, and support. The advocate had emphasized that they couldn't force Olivia to leave Marcus. They could only make sure she knew she had options. When the knock came, Richard opened the door to find Olivia standing there looking tired and wary. Dad, Aunt Jane, what's going on? Her eyes darted between them. Jen said she wanted to catch up. Not, ... whatever this is. Come in, sweetheart, Jane said gently. We just want to talk. Olivia stepped inside, arms crossed defensively. About what? Why are you even in San Francisco? Richard gestured to the sitting area. We're worried about you, Liv. I'm fine. But she sat, perched on the edge of the sofa, as if ready to flee. You don't seem like yourself lately, Jane began carefully. You've stopped pursuing things you love, your photography, your career. You seem anxious on calls. We've noticed bruises. Is this an intervention? Olivia's voice rose because of Marcus. Seriously, we're concerned about your relationship, Richard admitted. About how he treats you, how he treats me. You've seen him for what? A total of 3 days? You don't know anything about our relationship, Olivia. Jane leaned forward. Healthy relationships don't require you to give up your dreams, your friends, your independence. You don't understand. Marcus is under so much pressure he needs. What about what you need? Richard interrupted, unable to maintain the calm tone the advocate had recommended. Olivia stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. Wait. Jane pulled a pamphlet from her purse. Just take this in case you ever need it. Olivia glanced at the domestic violence resources pamphlet and recoiled. You think he's abusing me? That's insane. The hotel room door opened suddenly. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding as he took in the scene. Here, You are. I was worried when you didn't answer your phone. His voice was perfectly controlled, concerned. Everything okay? Jen appeared behind him, her face stricken. I'm sorry, I tried to text you. He came to the coffee shop looking for Olivia right after she left. Marcus stepped inside, placing a protective arm around Olivia. What's going on? They think you're abusing me, Olivia said, tears in her eyes. They ambushed me for some kind of intervention. Marcus's expression shifted to one of wounded dignity. Is that true, Mr. Bennett? Richard stood, matching Marcus's height. We're concerned about the changes we've seen in Olivia. Changes like becoming more mature, more focused on our future. Marcus's voice was reasonable, calm, making Richard feel like the irrational one. I understand you're protective, but this is insulting. Olivia, please. Jane tried again. We just want you to be happy. I am happy. Why can't you see that? Olivia grabbed her purse. Let's go, Marcus. Olivia, wait. Richard reached for her arm. Don't. She pulled away. I can't believe you'd do this. As they left, Marcus looked back at Richard with an expression that chilled him to the bone, not anger, but triumph. The door closed behind them with devastating finality. 2 weeks of silence followed the failed intervention. Richard's calls went unanswered, his texts unread. He'd returned home defeated, haunted by the look on Olivia's face as she left the hotel room when his phone finally rang with Olivia's ringtone late one evening. Richard nearly dropped it in his haste to answer. Olivia, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Stop, Dad. Her voice was flat. I'm only calling because Marcus thinks I should clear the air. Richard's heart sank. Marcus thinks, yes, he says family is important even when they make mistakes. Olivia, we were worried. I know, but you went behind my back. You ambushed me. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Richard closed his eyes. We just want you to be safe. I am safe. Marcus takes care of me, like he took care of his high school girlfriend. The words escaped before Richard could stop them. A sharp intake of breath. What are you talking about? Too late to backtrack now. The detective found a sealed record. Olivia complained from an ex-girlfriend when Marcus was 17. You hired a detective, her voice rose in disbelief, to investigate Marcus' identity. Needed to know if there was a pattern. Stop it. Just stop. Her voice shook. Marcus told me you might try something like this. He said your generation can't understand modern relationships. Controlling behavior isn't modern, Olivia. It's as old as time. We're done talking about this. I'm calling to tell you that I'm willing to move past your inappropriate behavior, because you're my father. But there are boundaries. No more surprise visits. No more interrogations about my relationship. And absolutely no more private investigators. Richard felt the distance between them widening with every word. And if I can't agree to those terms, then we won't be speaking for a while. Her voice softened slightly. I love you, Dad, but I love Marcus too. You need to accept that. After they hung up, Richard sat in his darkened living room, wondering if he'd just made everything worse. The weeks that followed were exercises in restraint. Richard limited himself to brief, neutral texts, nothing that could be construed as criticism of Marcus. Occasionally, Olivia would respond with equally bland updates. In March, Richard received an unexpected text from Olivia having a dinner party tonight. Several of Marcus's study group friends. Wish us luck. It was the most normal communication they'd had in months. Richard replied immediately. Good luck. Your mother's lasagna recipe always impresses guests. Hours later, he was startled awake by his phone. A text from Olivia, sent at 11:43 p.m. Pacific time. Everything's fine. Something about the timing, the unprompted reassurance, set off alarm bells. Richard stared at the screen, debating whether to call. Before he could decide, another text arrived. Marcus says hello. We're cleaning up after a successful evening. Everyone loved the food. The forced casualness, the mention of Marcus reading their text. Richard felt a chill. He typed carefully. Glad it went well. Call tomorrow if you want to tell me about it. No response came. Richard lay awake, staring at the ceiling, a sense of foreboding settling over him like a shroud. The next evening, Richard's phone lit up with Jen's name. Mr. Bennett, I just got a weird call from Olivia. What did she say? Almost nothing. She asked if I was free next weekend. Then I heard Marcus's voice in the background, and she suddenly said she had to go. But before she hung up, Jen hesitated. She sounded scared, Mr. Bennett. Really scared. Richard gripped the phone tighter. Did she say why? No, but I got a text after. Everything's fine. Just busy with Marcus's exam prep. Except it didn't sound like her. It sounded like someone was telling her what to write. Richard finished grimly. What should we do? I don't know, Jen. I honestly don't know anymore. Olivia leaned against the bathroom door, her heart hammering. Outside, she could hear Marcus smoothly explaining to their guests that she was just a bit emotional from work, stress that had happened so quickly. The dinner party had been going well. Marcus's study group friends and their partners, everyone complimenting her cooking, the conversation flowing. Then she'd turned too quickly with a wine bottle and spilled some on Marcus's stack of carefully annotated case notes. She'd seen the flash in his eyes, that cold, contained fury that had become all too familiar. but expected him to maintain the charming host persona he wore so perfectly in public. Instead, he'd gripped her arm, hard enough to bruise, before catching himself and suggesting with a tight smile that she freshen up. When she'd excused herself to the bathroom, she'd heard his footsteps behind her. He'd followed her in, closed the door, and whispered, "You'll stay in here until you can act appropriately. I'll tell everyone you're not feeling well. Marcus, it was an accident. We'll discuss it later." His voice was eerily calm. "Don't embarrass me further." Then he'd left, pulling the door shut behind him. Olivia had reached for the handle, only to find it wouldn't turn. Somehow, the door had locked from the outside. Now, pressing her eye to the keyhole, she could see Marcus in the hallway. His face transformed into something cold and calculating as he slipped a small key into his pocket. "Is Olivia okay?" That was Devon's wife, her voice concerned. "Just a headache," Marcus replied smoothly. "She gets migraines sometimes, needs to lie down in the dark." Olivia stepped back from the door, trembling. This wasn't the first time Marcus had locked her in a room. He'd done it twice before during arguments, claiming it was for her own good until she calmed down. But those times they'd been alone. Now, with guests just yards away, the calculated control of it struck her with terrifying clarity. Her father's warnings echoed in her mind, the intervention she'd dismissed so angrily, the concern in Jen's eyes. During her last visit, she'd defended Marcus, made excuses for him, convinced herself that his controlling behavior was just stress, just temporary, just because he cared so much. But locked in her own bathroom while he charmed their friends outside, something finally broke through her denial. This wasn't love. This was control. And it was getting worse. Olivia's hand moved to the bruises forming on her arm where he'd grabbed her. She thought of the sealed record her father had mentioned, the high school girlfriend. Had Marcus locked her in rooms too? Started with small criticisms that grew into complete control. She slid down to sit on the bathroom floor, her back against the tub. From beyond the door came the muffled sounds of conversation, laughter, normality while she sat imprisoned by the man who claimed to love her. Her phone was still in her pocket. Marcus hadn't taken it this time. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it out, scrolling to her messages with her father. After their last exchange, she'd promised herself she wouldn't reach out, wouldn't give him reason to worry. But sitting on the cold tiled floor, hearing Marcus cheerfully refilled wine glasses through the door, Olivia finally admitted the truth. She was afraid of the man she lived with, afraid of what might happen when the guests left, afraid of how much worse things might get. She stared at the screen, fingers hovering. What could she possibly say? How could she admit that everything her father had feared was true? In the end, simplicity won out. 4 words that contained her surrender, her apology, and her plea for help all at once. "Dad, you were right." She hit send before she could reconsider, then held the phone against her chest. Her breath shallow, tears streaming silently down her face. Through the keyhole, she saw Marcus approach the bathroom door, that same cold smile on his lips as he whispered just loud enough for her to hear, "You can come out when you're ready to apologize properly." Outside the bathroom, life continued. Inside, Olivia Bennett finally faced the truth of what her relationship had become and what she needed to do about it. Richard was halfway through a mindless television show when his phone lit up. One new message from Olivia. "Dad, you were right." He stared at the words, his blood turning to ice. For simple words that confirmed his worst fears. With shaking fingers, he called her immediately. "No answer," he texted. "Olivia, are you safe? Call me." No response. His mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. He called again, straight to voicemail. "Think, Richard," he muttered to himself. If something was happening right now, who could reach her faster than he could from 3,000 miles away? Jen. He fumbled through his contacts, finding her number. "Mr. Bennett," Jen answered, sounding groggy. "It's after midnight here." "Jen, I'm sorry to wake you. I just got a concerning text from Olivia. She might be in trouble. Can you check on her?" "What kind of trouble?" Jen was instantly alert. She texted Dad, "You were right, nothing else. She's not answering calls. She mentioned having people over tonight, a dinner party. Can you go over there and make up some reason?" "I can say I left my scarf last time I visited," Jen said, thinking quickly. "Give me 15 minutes to get dressed and grab an Uber." Richard paced his living room while waiting for news, checking flight options on his laptop. The earliest he could get to San Francisco was mid-morning tomorrow. He booked it without hesitation, then called Jane. "I think it's happening," he said when she answered. "Something with Marcus. Did she call you?" "Just a text, 4 words. His voice broke slightly. "Jane, what if he hurts her before I can get there?" She reached out. "That's huge. It means she's recognizing the danger." Jane's voice was steady, practical. "Have you called the police? And tell them what? That my adult daughter sent me a cryptic text. They won't do anything." "What about Jen?" "She's heading over there now. I've booked a flight for the morning. I'm coming with you. I'll be at your place in 30 minutes too. Help you pack." Richard was throwing clothes into a suitcase when Jen finally called back. "I'm outside their building," she whispered. "I can see lights on in their apartment. Can you get inside?" I'm going to try buzzing another unit and say I forgot my key. Richard held his breath while Jen maneuvered her way into the building. After what felt like hours, she spoke again. I'm at their door. I can hear voices. It sounds like people are still here. The dinner party guests. I think so. Should I knock? Yes, say you were in the area and realized you left something last time you visited. Richard heard the muffled sound of knocking, then distant voices. His grip on the phone was painful. Marcus answered. Jen whispered. He seemed surprised, but he's letting me in. I'll call you back. The line went dead. Richard stared at his phone, willing it to ring again. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, a text from Jen. Still here. Several guests. No sign of Olivia yet. Marcus says she has a migraine, resting in bedroom. Richard texted back. Try to see her. Another excruciating wait. Jane arrived, letting herself in with her spare key. She took one look at Richard's face and wordlessly began helping him pack. 20 minutes after her first text, Jen called again. Mr. Bennett, I can't get to Olivia. The bedroom door is open, but she's not there. Marcus said she's in the bathroom and doesn't want to be disturbed. Did you try talking to her through the door? He won't let me near the bathroom. That says she needs complete quiet. Richard felt sick. Jen, does the bathroom door have a lock on the outside? What? I don't. Wait. A pause. Oh my God. What? I just remembered. Last time I visited, Olivia mentioned something weird about their bathroom door. The lock is reversed. It locks from the outside. She laughed it off, said it was a quirk of the old apartment. Richard closed his eyes, fighting back nausea. He's locked her in. What should I do? Don't leave. Stay until the other guests go. Keep texting me updates. As Richard ended the call, Jane looked at him, her face pale. You think he's imprisoned her in her own home? I know he has. Richard zipped his suitcase with violent finality, and I'm going to get her out. Dawn broke as Richard boarded his flight, the sky streaked with pink and orange that he barely noticed. Jane sat beside him, her hand occasionally squeezing his arm when his anxiety became visible in his white-knuckled grip on the armrest. Any update? She asked quietly as they taxied toward the runway. Richard checked his phone one last time before flight mode. Jen stayed until all the guests left around 1 a.m. She says Marcus eventually unlocked the bathroom door and Olivia came out, looking pale but physically okay. Jen offered to have Olivia stay at her place, but Marcus insisted she needed rest, so she's still there with him. Jane's voice was tight. Yes. Jen texted her this morning, and Olivia replied that she's fine, just tired. Richard didn't mention his suspicion that Marcus had dictated or at least monitored that message. As the plane lifted off, Richard closed his eyes, desperately, wishing he could somehow teleport across the country. During their layover in Chicago, Richard's phone buzzed with a text from Jen. Just spoke to Olivia. She's alone right now. Marcus had a study group meeting. She says she's planning to leave, packing essentials while he's gone. I offered to come get her. Richard felt a surge of hope, quickly followed by fear. Tell her to be careful if he comes back while she's packing. 20 minutes later, another text from Jen. She won't leave today. Says she needs time to gather important documents and make a plan. Marcus closely tracks their accounts, so she needs cash. Tell her I'm on my way, Richard replied. Landing at 1:45 p.m. Pacific, Jane arranged for a rental car at the airport, while Richard reached out to Sandra from the support group who connected him with a domestic violence advocate in San Francisco. We can arrange emergency housing, the advocate told him. But your daughter needs to be the one to make the call. We can't force her to leave. She's planning to leave, Richard said. She just needs support. That's good. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when the victim tries to leave. Your daughter needs a careful safety plan. Those words echoed in Richard's mind as their plane finally touched down in San Francisco. He turned his phone back on to find a flurry of messages from Jen. Marcus came home early. Olivia says everything is fine, but her texts sound off. I'm going over there with the excuse of borrowing a book. He won't let me in, says Olivia. Is napping. The most recent message sent a chill through Richard. I can hear arguing through the door. Should I call 911? Richard called Jen immediately as they rushed toward the rental car desk. What's happening now? He demanded when she answered. I'm still outside their apartment, Jen whispered. The arguing stopped. He opened the door a crack and told me to leave or he'd call security for harassment. Did you see Olivia? No, he blocked the view. We're getting the rental car now. Send me the exact address. And Jen, Richard paused. Call 911 if you hear anything that sounds like violence. Don't hesitate. As Jane drove them from the airport, Richard stared out the window at the unfamiliar city, feeling like every red light and traffic slowdown was a personal attack. His phone buzzed again. No sounds for a while. Then I heard the shower running. Now Olivia just texted saying she's fine, just stressed about a work deadline, but it doesn't sound like her. Mr. Bennett, we're 20 minutes away, Richard replied, though it felt like an eternity. His phone rang in an unknown San Francisco number. Hello, Mr. Bennett, a female voice shaking slightly. It's Eliza from Marcus's study group. We met on your video call. I'm friends with Jen. She gave me your number. What's wrong? Richard's heart raced. I was at the dinner party last night. The way Marcus treated Olivia. She hesitated. I recognized it because my sister was in a similar relationship. I'm worried he might hurt her. Richard closed his eyes briefly. We're on our way there now. 20 minutes. Please hurry, Eliza said softly. The look in his eyes when she spilled that wine. I've seen that look before. Olivia's hands trembled as she folded a few essential items into her overnight bag. Marcus had gone to shower after their argument, giving her a brief window to prepare. She moved quickly, quietly, selecting only what she couldn't leave behind: her passport, birth certificate, a photo of her mother, her camera. The argument had been the worst yet. When Marcus had returned from his study group, which she now suspected had been a lie to test her, he'd found her looking through their financial documents. Planning something, he'd asked, his voice dangerously soft. Just organizing. She'd lied, her heart pounding. His laugh had been cold. You've never shown interest in our finances before. Strange time to start. Then he'd noticed the small bag partially hidden under the bed. His face had transformed, that mask of civility dropping completely. You're leaving. Not a question, a statement, his voice flat. Marcus, after everything I've done for you. His control had slipped then, voice rising. I took you in when you had nothing. I'm building a future for us, and this is how you repay me. You locked me in the bathroom, Olivia had said, finally finding her courage, while our friends were here. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself, spilling wine on my notes. I was protecting you from making a bigger scene. The twisted logic was familiar, how he always turned his controlling behavior into concern, his anger into her failure. This isn't normal, she'd said quietly. This isn't love. Something had flashed in his eyes, then rage, but also fear. He'd grabbed her wrists, pinning her against the wall. Your father put these ideas in your head. You were happy until he interfered. Let go. Marcus, you're hurting me. For a moment, she'd thought he might hit her. Instead, he'd released her abruptly. We're not done discussing this. I'm going to shower, and when I come out, you better have reconsidered this ridiculous plan. Now, hearing the shower still running, Olivia zipped the small bag and slid it under the bed again. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jen. Your dad just landed. We're coming to get you. Hang in there. Relief washed over her. Her father was coming. After everything, after how terribly she'd treated him, he'd dropped everything and flown across the country for her. The shower shut off. Olivia quickly locked her phone and placed it on the nightstand, pretending to read a book when Marcus emerged, a towel around his waist. Feel better? She asked, aiming for normalcy. His eyes narrowed, studying her. You seem different, calmer. I've been thinking about what you said. He sat beside her on the bed, water droplets still clinging to his shoulders. And, you're right, I was being impulsive. The lies tasted bitter. It's just been a stressful week. Marcus smiled, reaching out to stroke her hair. She forced herself not to flinch. I understand, babe, we're both under pressure. But you know, I only want what's best for us. I know, she whispered. Let me make it up to you. I'll cook dinner tonight. Your favorite pasta. Olivia nodded, knowing she would not be there for dinner. As soon as possible, she was leaving and never coming back. A knock at the door made them both turn. Expecting someone? Marcus asked, his voice suddenly cold again. No, Olivia's heart raced. It was too early for her father to have arrived. Marcus pulled on a t-shirt and sweatpants, moving to the door while Olivia remained frozen. On the bed, she heard Jen's voice, then Marcus's firm refusal to let her in. When he returned, his expression had darkened again. Your friend is becoming a nuisance. She seems to think you need checking up on. She's just being friendly, is she? Or did you call her? His eyes flicked to her phone on the nightstand. Before she could react, he snatched it up, quickly navigating to her messages. His face contorted as he read, Your father. Coming here. He looked up, eyes blazing. You called your father behind my back. Olivia stood, backing away. Marcus, please, after everything, you're still plotting against me. He advanced toward her phone clutched in his fist. No one is taking you anywhere. Do you understand? No one. Richard sprinted up the apartment building stairs, Jane and Jen close behind. His heart pounded, partly from exertion but mostly from fear. Jen had called as they parked, saying she'd heard shouting from inside the apartment. Which unit? Richard gasped as they reached the third floor. 314, end of the hall. Jen pointed, her face pale with worry. Richard didn't hesitate, striding to the door and pounding on it with his fist. Olivia, it's Dad. Silence, then shuffling sounds from inside. She's in there, Jen whispered. But he might not let you in. Richard pounded again. Marcus, open this door right now. The door swung open, revealing Marcus, composed and smiling despite the tension radiating from him. Mr. Bennett, what a surprise. Olivia didn't mention you were visiting. Where is she? Richard demanded, trying to look past him into the apartment. She's resting. We had a disagreement, but everything's fine now. I want to see my daughter. Marcus's smile didn't waver. This isn't a good time. Why don't you call later and arrange? Dad. Olivia's voice came from inside the apartment, followed by Olivia herself appearing behind Marcus. Her face was tear-streaked, but her eyes showed fierce determination. I'm coming with you. Marcus's arm shot out, blocking the doorway. We haven't finished our discussion, Olivia. Yes, we have. Her voice shook but held firm. I'm leaving, Marcus. Don't be ridiculous. Where would you even go? With me, Richard said. Now step aside. Marcus's pleasant facade cracked, revealing the cold fury beneath. This is between Olivia and me. This is our home. It's your home, Olivia corrected. I'm just your prisoner in it. You're being dramatic. Your father has filled your head with a new voice interrupted. Is everything okay here? A uniformed security guard approached, looking concerned. Fine, Marcus said curtly. Just a family disagreement. The guard looked skeptical. I got calls about shouting and a possible domestic disturbance. Jen stepped forward. She's trying to leave, but he won't let her. Marcus's eyes darted between them, calculations clearly running behind his eyes. Richard could almost see the moment Marcus realized the situation was slipping from his control. My things, Olivia said quietly. I need my bag. What bag? The voice was dangerously soft. The one under the bed, with my documents. For a moment, Richard thought Marcus might refuse. The security guard shifted closer, hand moving to his radio. Fine, Marcus finally said, stepping back. Get your things, and go if that's what you want. Olivia moved quickly past him, disappearing into the bedroom. Richard kept his eyes fixed on Marcus, who stared back with undisguised hatred. This isn't over, Marcus murmured, too low for the guard to hear. Yes it is, Richard replied firmly. Olivia reappeared with a small duffel bag, her expression a mixture of relief and grief. I'm ready. As she stepped into the hallway, Marcus grabbed her arm. Olivia, think about what you're doing. Everything we've built, let go of her. Richard's voice was steel. The security guard moved closer. Sir, I need you to step back inside your apartment. Marcus released Olivia's arm, his face contorting briefly before smoothing into a cold mask. When you realize what a mistake this is, don't expect me to take you back. Olivia didn't respond, just turned and walked toward the elevator's shoulders, straight despite her trembling hands. Richard, Jane, and Jen followed, forming a protective circle around her as the elevator doors closed. Richard saw Marcus still standing in the doorway, watching them with calculating eyes. The threat in his gaze was unmistakable. Is there anything else you need from the apartment? Jane asked gently as they descended. Olivia shook her head. Nothing that matters. In the parking lot she finally broke down, collapsing into her father's arms with deep, wrenching sobs. I'm sorry, she gasped between tears. I'm so sorry I didn't listen. Richard soothed, holding her tightly. You're safe now. That's all that matters. As they drove away, Olivia didn't look back at the building, where she'd been slowly disappearing for almost a year. Instead, she leaned against her father's shoulder, exhausted but finally free. The motel room was nothing special: bland decor, stiff sheets, the faint scent of industrial cleaner, but to Olivia, it felt like sanctuary. She sat cross-legged, on one of the twin beds, cradling a cup of vending machine hot chocolate while her father occupied the chair by the window, keeping a watchful eye on the parking lot. Jane had gone to get takeout food. Jen had reluctantly left for a work commitment, extracting promises that Olivia would call if she needed anything. Are you sure you don't want to go to the police? Richard asked gently, breaking the comfortable silence. Olivia stared into her cup. And say what? That my boyfriend criticized me, locked me in a bathroom, controlled our finances. She shook her head. It's not enough for charges. The bruises on your arm would be his word against mine. He'd say I bruise easily, that I'm emotionally unstable. Her voice was bitter. He's a law student, Dad. He knows exactly how far he can go. Richard nodded, understanding but frustrated. What about a restraining order? Maybe. Olivia looked up. The advocate you connected me with is helping me figure out the options. They lapsed into silence again. So many things needed to be said, but neither knew where to begin. Finally, Olivia set down her cup. I should have listened to you. Don't do that, Richard said firmly. Don't blame yourself, but I do blame myself. Or the signs were there. You saw them. Jen saw them. Why couldn't I? Because he didn't start with locked doors and bruises. He started with compliments and concern. He isolated you so gradually, you didn't notice the cage being built around you. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. I gave up everything for him. My job, my friends, my photography, even you. You didn't give me up, Richard said softly. I was always there waiting. I said such horrible things to you. You were manipulated by an expert. Richard moved to sit beside her on the bed. The important thing is that you found the strength to leave. That takes incredible courage. Olivia leaned against his shoulder, the familiar scent of his aftershave bringing back memories of childhood comfort after nightmares or disappointments. What happens now? She whispered. Whatever you want. You can come home with me or stay here or go somewhere entirely new. The choice is yours. I don't know who I am anymore without him telling me. The admission was painful, spoken in a small voice. Then you get to rediscover yourself, and I'll be there every step of the way without judgment, without I told you so. Olivia managed a watery smile. Even though you did tell me so, Even then, when Jane returned with food, they ate sitting on the beds, talking about practical matters, cancelling joint accounts, arranging for the rest of Olivia's belongings to be retrieved, finding a temporary place to stay. "What about your photography?" Jane asked between bites of lo mein. "Do you think you might want to pick that up again?" Olivia's eyes lit up for the first time. "Maybe. I still have my camera." "Your mother would be so proud of you," Richard said. Suddenly, "Not just of your photography, of your bravery today." Olivia's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Her face paled as she checked the screen. "Marcus," Richard asked, instantly alert. She nodded. "10th message since we left. They started apologetic. Now they're getting angry. You don't have to read them." "I know." Olivia turned off the phone completely, then took a deep breath. "Tomorrow I'll get a new number." As night fell, Jane left for her own room next door, promising to meet them for breakfast. Richard made up the second bed, but knew he wouldn't sleep much. He'd stand guard if necessary. Olivia paused before turning out the light. "Dad, thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," Richard promised. Not for a single moment. As she drifted to sleep, Richard watched over his daughter, thinking of all the steps ahead, healing, rebuilding, rediscovering joy. The road wouldn't be easy, but they would walk it together, one day at a time. 1 year later, Richard sat in the back row of a community center meeting room, watching his daughter address the small gathering, the same community center where he had first attended a support group, desperate for answers. "I didn't recognize the relationship as abusive," Olivia was saying, her voice steady as she shared her story. "He never hit me, not until the very end, but he controlled what I wore, who I saw, where I went. He criticized everything I did until I stopped trusting my own judgment. He isolated me from friends and family who might have helped me see the truth." The room was silent, captivated by her words. About 20 people sat in folding chairs, some victims, some family members of victims, all seeking understanding and hope. "The hardest part to admit," Olivia continued, "was that I enabled it. I made excuses for his behavior. I defended him. To anyone who expressed concern, I pushed away the people who were trying to help me." She looked directly at Richard then, a small smile softening her features. "My father saw what was happening before I could. He tried to warn me, and I rejected him completely. But even after I shut him out, he never gave up. He was there the moment I finally reached out for help." Richard blinked back tears, overwhelmed with pride. The transformation in Olivia over the past year had been remarkable. After staying with him for 3 months, she'd found her own apartment in their hometown. She'd returned to photography, selling prints at local art fairs. She'd started working part-time at a marketing firm while taking classes in digital media. Most importantly, she'd committed to therapy, working through the trauma and rebuilding her confidence. The process hadn't been linear. There were nightmares, panic attacks, days when she barely left her bedroom, times when a text from a new number Marcus was finding ways to reach her despite the restraining order she'd eventually secured, would set her back for weeks. But she had persevered. And now, 1 year after her escape, she was strong enough to share her story. "If you're here because you're worried about someone you love," Olivia continued, "please don't give up on them, even when they push you away. Your presence, your unconditional support, might be the lifeline they eventually grab onto." After the meeting, Sandro, the woman who had first helped Richard understand what Olivia was experiencing, approached them. "Full circle," she said, embracing Olivia. "Your father sat where you're standing now, desperate to help you, and now you're helping others." "It's healing," Olivia admitted, "turning something so painful into something useful." As they walked to the parking lot together, Richard noticed Olivia taking photographs of the sunset with her phone. "Beautiful light," he commented. "I'm documenting moments of beauty now," she explained. "Part of my therapy, training myself to notice good things again." In the car, Olivia grew quiet, pensive. "What are you thinking about?" Richard asked. "I got an offer yesterday. A small gallery wants to feature my work in their emerging artists showcase." "Olivia, that's wonderful." "The theme is resilience," she smiled. "Seems fitting. Your mother would be over the moon." "I know." Olivia reached over to squeeze his hand. "Dad, there's something I've been wanting to tell you." Richard glanced at her, concerned by her serious tone. "I've started mentoring other women leaving abusive relationships, working with the advocacy center." Pride swelled in Richard's chest. "That's incredible. I couldn't have gotten here without you," she said softly. "You knew what was happening when I couldn't see it. You were waiting when I was ready to leave. You never once said I told you so. That's what parents do, Livy." She smiled at the childhood nickname she once rejected. "I'm thinking of using it as the title for my exhibition, What Love Actually Looks Like." As they drove home in the fading light, Richard thought about the journey they'd traveled, the fear, the helplessness, the hard-won freedom. There would always be scars, always be healing left to do. But here they were, together, stronger, whole. "I like that title," he said finally. "It's perfect."